start in the middle and work backwards. Here are the expectations of the volunteers. Number one, your professionals providing professional service. So we expect you to be there 15 minutes before your shift. We expect you to be courteous and respect the privacy of our clients. We expect that if you start a tax return at 11:30, shift ends at 12, and you're not done with the tax return until 1, you stay until you're finished. That's what professionals do. Don't park in front of Violet Hall. That's reserved for our clients. And parking is, as you know, is a problem anyway. Bring the training materials with you to the materials we give you tonight. Bring it with you on Sunday. Also bring it with you on Saturday. Some of you, if you're in VITA officer, will be doing an on-call shift, which means if we get backed up, we'll call you to come in. Here's our expectation. You can do the on-call shift at home, but we want you dressed by the phone and ready to be here in 10 minutes. Now, we might not call you, and I think, Kayla, last year we called maybe once, but we may not, we may not, and it's impossible to predict, when and how busy we'll be. So the other thing to do is bring some stuff with you to do, homework or whatever. If you're in the auditing course, anybody in the audit course? Don't bring audit stuff with you. We don't do that in a tax area. Financial accounting is okay, managerial is okay, but don't bring in audit stuff. Or don't let me see it. So those are our expectations. Now what we're going to do is show you 2 videos, and Peggy, leave the lights on for this. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Jody. Pull the screen down. Andrew's around because he's tall. Jody, if you would, also turn to page 19, and there's a description of what you'll see. Jody, the floor is yours.
Alright guys, so this is just a quick video that introduces all the different sort of roles that are involved in VITA. Basically, we have some people on the screen who are either reading or kind of just telling you about it. Basically what they're saying is exactly what you have in your packet right there, so you can kind of follow along through it. But this is just to give you an idea of kind of how the process works, and also see some of the faces that you might see in leadership roles and kind of know who you can go to ask questions for. So pay attention and make sure we might ask some questions afterwards.
I'll attend each filing date and will be available for any questions or potential problems that will need assistance. If you have any questions throughout your volunteering process, please direct them to me, Alan Davis, or the GTRA.
I'm a frontline coordinator with high levels of interaction with the client. I will come to Violet Hall 1408 dressed in business casual 15 minutes before my shift begins and will sign in with Alan Davis, the volunteer coordinator. After being assigned a return, the volunteer coordinator takes me to meet the client. I will give the client a nice handshake and introduce myself. Then I will take the client to the computer lab, Violet Hall 1432, where I will enter the necessary data into TaxWise, explaining the basics of the process to the client. After I finish the return, I will raise my hand to let the reviewers know that I'm finished. A reviewer will then come over and check my work. Once it is approved, I will take the client and the printed return to the assembly room, introduce them to the assembly assistant, and then return to the waiting room for another client. I am assigned to work a 4-hour shift, but being a professional, I know that I will stay until I am released by the volunteer coordinator.
My name is Alan. I am the volunteer coordinator. I am the special assistant to Jody. My job is to review the information, determine the difficulty level of the return, and match the difficulty level of the return to the experience level of the volunteer. I will then take the volunteer and introduce him or her to the client.
I'm the greeter. I will verify that the client has all the necessary documents, social security cards, W-2s, etc. Once the client fills out the intake sheet, I will explain the rest of the process to the client and then deliver the client information to the volunteer coordinator. I will also maintain the client file and record the client's social security numbers and help international students complete the 8843 form.
I'm the tax expert in Violet Hall 1432. If the volunteer has any questions while completing the return, I will know or find the answer for them. Once the volunteer has finished completing the return, I will go through the return and recheck the work of the volunteer. Once I am satisfied, I will print out the return and send the volunteer and client to the assembly room.
I am the assembler. I put together the client's return. I will take all the printed information and organize it for the client's record. I will also tell the client what they need to mail if they're not able to file electronically. I also tell the client where to mail the check to if they have any tax due. The assembly assistant will make any copies that I need.
I am the social greeter. I am the first person who the client meets, and I introduce them to the whole process they have to go through. I can answer any question the client has about our service, and I will give them the appropriate intake sheet and then start the client folder.
The assembly assistant. I work in the assembly room with the assemblers. When the clients are brought in, I greet the clients and have them take a seat. I keep track of the order in which clients come in order to keep an orderly line for the assemblers. I will make any copies that the assembler needs for the tax returns. When I am not greeting new clients or making copies, I will make small talk with the new clients. I also hand out the VITA experience surveys.
I am the on-call volunteer. I am the volunteer that will be used if we have a large influx of clients. If I am called in, I am expected to report to VITA at home within 10 minutes, dressed in business casual. I am required to stay on call for 2 hours. If I am called in, I will stay until the volunteer coordinator releases me.
Now, of course, the majority of you will be preparers. Jody will contact you, the ones that we've chosen to be greeters. The assemblers will be graduate students, so the most of you will be preparers, and the thing that you will be doing is data entry. You'll be taking the numbers off the taxpayer's source documents and putting it on the computer. But there'll be plenty of people there to help you. So now we're going to play a second video for you, and you'll see an example of what to do and an example what not to do. And what I want each group to do is identify one thing that the bad volunteer, you will know who he is, one thing that he's done that you're not going to do. So.
You should arrive 15 minutes before your assigned shifts, dressed in appropriate business casual. The first room you will come to is Violet Hall 1408, which is our volunteer waiting room, to sign in and report to the volunteer coordinator. The volunteer coordinator will give you a one-page form to fill out to determine your skill level, based on things like how many times you have done VITA before and whether or not you have had a tax course. This is an example of a bad volunteer.
Hello, Luke.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Ooh,
You're a little tired there.
yeah, we're both looking. I'm here.
Can you please sign in for me?
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
As clients arrive, a student greeter will meet them in the client greeting room. The greeter will assemble client information in a folder and give the information to the volunteer coordinator. The coordinator will review the data and the volunteer information forms and will match the difficulty of the tax return with the skill level of the volunteer and choose an appropriate volunteer. He or she will then take you to the client waiting room and will call out the name of the client and introduce you to the client.
Hi, Sarah. I have a client for you. The completed intake sheet is in there, and here's all of the client's information, and he has everything that he needs. All right, thank you. Let's see, W-2, Social Security, property tax. Okay, Elise, do you want to do this return? Yeah.
Once you meet the client, you should greet the client with a firm handshake and a smile. You will then escort the client to the filing room, which is the computer room. During this time, you are encouraged to engage in small talk with the client.
This is going to be your prepared release. Hi, Ms. Harrison. Nice to meet you.
I hope you don't screw up the return the way they did last year.
You know, we'll do our very best, and we have quite a solid review process, so don't worry.
Good, good.
All right, here's some materials. All right, good, thanks, Sarah. We'll go down this way then. So, Mr. Harrison, how long have you lived in Kirksville?
About 80 years. I moved here when I was 20.
So you've seen a lot of change over the years.
Not much.
This is an example of a bad volunteer.
Lou, do you want to do this return?
Smart, smart. Well,
You
yeah.
want to do this return?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Will be a good experience.
Thanks, Elise.
Hello, Keith. This is Luke. He's going to be your preparer.
I hope you don't screw up my return the way they did last year.
Well, they don't pay us, and there's no guarantees on any of this. We'll just do this stuff shop.
Here's this stuff and have it done.
This guy having your kittens.
Before beginning the return, please mark the time and sign your name on the client time card. This card helps us track the client's time spent while on site. Once you are done with your return, ask one of the reviewers to review your work. The reviewer will inform the client of their refund or tax due and print out the filing documents. The reviewer will sign the time card. Then you will bring the filing documents and escort the client to the assembly room.
You know, you remind me of my granddaughter.
Is that right?
Yeah, she